everyone. Welcome to episode 250 of the Book Cougars, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chris. And we turned 250 before America did. Look at us.
And we also are celebrating with Jane Austen, which seems pretty appropriate.
Absolutely.
You know, this has been a big month for us. December, we turned 9 years old and our 250th episode. And a lot of you have been here since the beginning. Thank you so much. We have been doing this since December 2016.
Every other Tuesday, nonstop.
Nonstop. And some of you were getting emails. You've just discovered us. Welcome. And you have a lot of back episodes to listen to.
If you want to put yourself through that.
Yeah, exactly. So we have some thank yous.
Yes. A big thank you to Kathy, who sent us a wonderful card with a check inside. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so much.
And also, thank you so much to Rebecca, who became a new Patreon supporter.
We're so happy to have you. And a reminder to people that if you become a Patreon at the $5 or above level, we have a standing date on the fourth Sunday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We do a reading salon, which is just an informal discussion about books with our patrons. It's really fun.
Yes, and we've been having a theme or some topic that we talk around, which is a lot of fun. So it is our last episode of the year. Goodbye, 2025. And we thought we would do a little bit of a wrap up of how our reading intentions went this year.
Yes, and when Chris texted me about this, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to look up what they were. That's kind of how my year of reading intentions went. So we're going to wrap it up and look at it. And it was kind of fun for me to reflect on these and see how they went. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I had to look at it too because I didn't really remember. The only thing I remembered was Margaret Fuller.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we do this and write them down at the beginning of each year. Maybe next year we could do a mid-year check-in.
I think we might have. I don't remember. This year has been such a blur for both of us.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my goodness.
So did we each pick 5? What was the
I have 6 on mine.
Okay, so why don't you go first? Because I think I have 5.
Okay, so the first one I had was explore becoming a completist with a favorite author. And this was a term that I had never heard that Chris mentioned when I was looking at reading all of Maggie O'Farrell's work. And I thought, ooh, now I want to become a completist on somebody. And the authors that I mentioned for myself, these are notes, that I wrote down about my intentions, were Anna Quinlan, Alice Hoffman, Erica Wood, Catherine Newman, and Janine Cummins. Now, what I wrote down was nope. I did not become a completist, but I did read a novel from several of them. I read one by Anna Quinlan, Catherine Newman, and Janine Cummins this year. So I call that making progress.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, becoming a completist is all about making progress because some people have a long catalog, as they say, and it takes
are
time.
Writing new books because all 3 of those were new books that came out. And I just found out that Maggie O'Farrell has a new one coming out in June of 26 called Land, which I'm so excited about. So, they make our job harder because they keep writing too.
Absolutely.
It'd be easier to become a completist on an author that's passed away, I guess.
Don't look at Agatha Christie.
True that.
You don't want to be careful about that, right?
And then the second intention was to read 52 books, which is something that you and I both usually set 1 book a week. And I do track on Goodreads, which is really helpful. And I checked and I'm at 83 so far. So I've done pretty well. And then the third was, if you remember in 2024, I did a short story reading project where every Monday I read a short story so that I could read some of the short story collections that I gather. And so I was contemplating, do I want to continue doing that? I had an idea of maybe doing an essay reading every Monday. I didn't do either of those things, but we did read from the Penguin Book of Ghost Stories throughout the year. So I feel like it was a different form of reading a short story. It wasn't every week. It was almost every other week. I think we skipped a couple. And then one of my goals was to be doing more work on my Ingredient One Substack newsletter. I had set a goal to do 1 a month. I didn't quite reach that, but I did do some posts there. And my focus there, for those of you who don't know, is on the intersection between food and literature. So, in doing some cooking and talking about books, I recently did a post with some recommendations for gifts involving books with food, cookbooks, etc. So I'll put a link in the show notes if you would like to subscribe to my Ingredient One newsletter. And I'm going to have the same goal next year of trying to do one a month. We'll see how I do. And then I had a wish to do Biblio Adventures with a focus. I had written down Georgia O'Keeffe because there was a biography by Roxana Robinson I was interested in. And the Mattituck Museum in Waterbury was doing a Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit. None of that happened. But I did go on some fun Biblio adventures with my buddy across the table this year. So, there were Biblio adventures, just not something with a focus.
Well, the whole Natalie Dykstra / Garner Museum.
Yes.
That was a good combo of a museum and a Biblio adventure and a book.
A biography.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, yeah.
I did do it. Thank you. It's good to do your intentions with a friend. No shaming of myself. That's true. That was a wonderful one. That was like a highlight of my year. How did I not remember that? Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember it so well because I wouldn't have been exposed to it without you, because you're the one who, came with the biography saying, oh, this is so awesome. And so then I read it and we did the Biblio adventure and got to talk with Natalie on episode 248.
Which was amazing. Yeah. Oh my God. I think about that museum so often. I want to go back. And then this one, Chris, cracked me up because we talk about when you write things down, you can manifest them. Number 6 on my reading intentions is toying with starting some sort of book to movie club. Any interest out there? Yeah, look what happened. I really did not remember this at all. And for those of you who have listened to episode 249, that might just have something to do with our read-along theme for 2026.
Right? Oh my God, it's so funny when I saw that because I looked back at the episode where we mentioned these and I was like, well, Emily got her wish.
I cannot believe it. I was like, I didn't even think about that Anyway, write things down, folks, and they may happen.
Even if you forget.
Even if you forget.
It's
and
true.
Even if it takes a year.
Oh my gosh. Well, my reading intentions, the first one was to be open to buddy reads, but try not to overcommit. Because it is, future me is always like, I want to read this and I want to read that. And then when present me catches up, it's like, I can't read all of that. It's physically impossible to read all that. So I tried to be more mindful about that. So I did have some great buddy reads this year. I read Proust as part of Robin's group, the first book in his 7-volume novel, In Search of Lost Time. And we're going to be reading his second novel in that entry this next year, in February and March 2026. I read A New Home Who'll Follow with Sigrid. I read some classics with Kate. I read some Edith Wharton with Sean of Sean Breed's books with Dorian and James. And then I read a bunch of Cather again with Colleen and her group. She did a read one Cather novel a month because she conveniently wrote 12. That was really cool to revisit those. So
yeah, and the thing that's funny is you don't want to overcommit, but on the other hand, doing buddy reads elevates the experience of reading the books. So it is fun to have them sprinkled throughout the year.
Absolutely. Yeah. So another intention was to read some more 19th century novels, which I did. And those include Old New York. I mean, that wasn't a novel. Old New York was a collection of 4 novellas by Edith Wharton. Silas Marner by George Eliot. I practice not calling it Silas Mariner. The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I did not read The Red and the Black by Stendhal, but I did read Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, which is really good. Another intention was to read Margaret Fuller, the Library of America collection that just came out this year. And I'm so grateful for a group of friends who got together to do that. We met on Zoom twice. We had 2 Zoom conversations, and then we had a reading schedule that we broke out. And that was so helpful to have friends along for that reading experience, because I really love Margaret Fuller, but her writing can be really challenging, and it was good to have people to talk it over with. So thank you to my friends who participated in that. And then my last one, I skipped the 52 books thing. I'm sure that was part of it, but I, for some reason, didn't write it down, and I didn't check to see where I am. I don't think I've read as many as 80. But the last intention I have here is to read fewer books and write about them, including journaling, blogging, and professional reviews. However, I haven't written a professional review since I reviewed Trial by Ambush and Criminal Element in December of 2024, I think that was. So I didn't write as much this year at all, and even in my journal about books or on my blog. So that is something I'm going to carry over as well, like you with Ingredient One, to keep having that on my calendar because it's important to me. I feel like I dig deeper into books and I understand the book more and make better connections to other books and to events and situations in my own life that a novel or a nonfiction book can help me. It can help give me some perspective. So I definitely want to do more of that in 2026.
I wonder if you kind of did it, though, through your conversations with your buddy reads. You know, it'd be interesting to see if you did some writing after those conversations or something, because I do feel like you dug really deep into a lot of your reading this year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I take notes during those conversations, and obviously, like, I read with more intention, to use that word again, when I know I'm going to discuss something, especially with a group or one-on-one. So for sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was a very good reading year. I'm really happy with all the reading I did.
That's great.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. Yeah. Actually, one of the notes I wrote when I was doing this is it's going to be really hard for me to choose a top 10 this year.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it is. I mean, one of the most recent posts I did on my blog was a recap of all the nonfiction I've read so far in 2025, because I did sign up for a reading challenge to read and review 12 nonfiction books. And I'll talk about that in a future episode. But I was like, wow, I've read some really good nonfiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I know what my number one novel is for 2025, but next I have to go through and look at all the novels I read, because there have been some really excellent ones.
Mm-hmm. I think I know what your number one's going to be. Oh, this is going to be so fun. Reminder that the first episode of January, episode 251, will be our top 10 episode with Russell from Ink and Paper blog. This is an annual episode that we do. That's one of all of our favorites of the year. Wow. Okay. We did a great job with our intentions.
I think
and
so.
I'm going to think about what I want mine to be for next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for those of you who are new listeners, we call them intentions because we like it, because an intention is something you kind of want to do. It's not as hard and fast as a goal. So like if you don't hit that goal, you failed. You know, we don't want to ever have that kind of pressure on ourselves around reading. So we like the idea of intentions.
We don't want to encourage people to set hard goals for themselves. We want you to be soft and gentle with yourselves, just like we are.
Yes. And push yourself a little bit in areas where you want to be, but not in a way that's going to be damaging to your self-esteem or make you feel like you're not a, quote, good enough reader.
Right.
Because that's just poo-poo.
Gosh, whatever that means.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Emily, what are you currently reading?
Well, I had a big trip to New York last week and wanted to take something that I knew would be kind of light and fun to read. So I took the newest installation in the Finlay Donovan series. Finlay Donovan Crosses the Line. This is number 6 in the series. So if you haven't been reading Finlay, there's plenty of backlist for you to read if you're interested, because this is an advanced reader copy. Thank you to Minotaur for sending it our way. And the pub date on this is March 17th, 2026. This is by El Casamano, and Finlay and her nanny Vero are back at it again. Before they met, Vero, her nanny, had been in college and she was living in a sorority house, and she was the treasurer on the board. She was the treasurer, which meant she was in charge of the money. And they were running a poker game. And the poker game was bringing in a lot of cash, and Vero had it stored in her closet. And one night she was out at a party and the money went missing. Wah, wah. So this novel picks up with Vero wearing an ankle bracelet. She's back in her hometown in Virginia awaiting trial. And Finlay leaves home to go visit Vero, and then Vero decides that she needs to have a conversation with the person who could be the chief witness to defend her case. And, you know, mayhem ensues, as always happens when these two get together. I'm really enjoying it. You know, there's a cast of characters that are back, including this young man named Cam, who Finley is kind of, adopted as a son, and he's a techie. So he can get in and do all sorts of things, including maybe doing something with Vero's ankle bracelet so she can get out of the house. And he has a chihuahua that he calls Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is a really cute character. And I find him very fun. So I was glad that he was back in this novel. Again, it's called Finley Donovan Crosses the Line. It's a lot of fun. There's always a mystery element and good dialogue and just laughs. Out 317.
That's great. That makes me think of Stephen King. He and his wife have corgis. And when he posts about his corgi, and he calls it the Thing of Terror. I think it's adorable because it's this adorable corgi. But now that I have a dog that's part corgi, I kind of understand.
You get it?
Our little corgi is all business, and definitely he's a stubborn little fellow, but he's so smart, and he learns really fast, thank God.
It makes his terror easier to take.
Yes. So, in the last episode, I made the shocking announcement that one of my favorite short stories from the Penguin Book of Ghost Stories was actually The Jolly Corner by Henry James, which is a story that we both... Well, let's just say the title of that episode in which that conversation appeared was Henry James is, in parentheses, dead to us. I actually was so surprised that when I was thinking about all the short stories, that one really rose to the top for me. And it made me curious about other short stories by Henry James, ghost stories to be specific. I did read The Turn of the Screw also this year, but one that I've turned to, and I started reading it, is The Romance of Certain Old Clothes. Now, The Jolly Corner was the last ghost story he published, and The Romance of Certain Old Clothes is actually one of the first. He wrote it in 1867. It was published in 1868 in the Atlantic Monthly, and I just started it. It's one of those short stories that has different sections, so I did start it, and more to come on that. It's definitely a different style. You know, it's not as ambiguous and vague as The Jolly Corner, where you're wondering what the hell is going on. So far, it's much more straightforward. And not to say that Nathaniel Hawthorne's writing was always very straightforward, but it does have a vibe to me of a Nathaniel Hawthorne story because it's set in the 18th century in Massachusetts, and it's a woman who's a widow with children. It just has that kind of Hawthorne-esque vibe.
I think Henry James Ghost tapped you on the shoulder and said, I'm not dead to you. Very cool. I'm reading a cookbook called Still We Rise by Erica Council. She's the owner of Atlanta's Bomb Biscuit Company, which I hear is impossible to get into. They make these delicious looking, huge sandwiches on these biscuits that they make. And I have not made a biscuit from the cookbook yet, but I did make her sweet potato biscakes recipe, which are pancakes, essentially. And she talks about in the head note that something went wrong when she was working on a sweet potato biscuit recipe and the dough was really wet and she was going to throw it away. And someone said, don't throw it away, make it into pancakes. And that's how the recipe came to be.
That's great.
Yeah. It's good to be flexible when you're doing recipe testing.
Well, obviously, like reading with other people, baking with other people.
Yes. Yeah. And also, don't throw things away because they didn't turn out like you wanted. I understand the frustration of that, but then this other recipe was born, which you hear people say all the time. Like, I was trying to do this and this happened and, instead of having cookies, I had brownies or, whatever. It actually reminds me of when I was a kid in elementary school and I'd come home after school with one of my friends and we would try to make cookies in the kitchen. And then, you'd do all this work and you'd put the pan in the oven with them in cookie shape and then you'd pull it out of the oven and it was like all just one thing on the pan, like something went wrong.
Yeah, but it's still yummy.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
We didn't care.
Yeah, I know, right?
But Erica is the granddaughter of Mildred Mama Dip Council, and she was a chef, teacher, and activist who cooked and baked to help support the civil rights movement. So one of the things that was really a surprise to me, a pleasant surprise as I was reading the cookbook, was that throughout it there are stories and biographical sketches of Southern icons with photos of them. So it's really an informative book as well. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to it and making a recipe that is a biscuit recipe, because I love a biscuit.
Me too. You might find me. I might be standing outside on your
Sniffing it
window
out.
looking like, please, another ma'am.
There will be one in your future. Again, it's called Still Re-Rise by Erica Council. It's a beautiful cookbook.
Nice. Well, I'm reading a book called Beth is Dead. And how many Beths in literature do you know who are dead? Does anybody come to mind?
I know.
You in the blue shirt.
Little Women.
Yes, Little Women. Very good. You get a gold star for the day. Beth is Dead is by Katie Barnett. This book comes out January 6th. Thank you so much to NetGalley and Simon & Schuster for the advanced digital reader copy. It is so much fun. The Beth in this title is indeed Beth March from Little Women, the sister who dies in that classic, iconic story. So yeah, Beth is dead. What more can I say? I don't want to say too much. I'm 13% in. I'm loving it so much. If you know Little Women, you will just enjoy the story so much, because Katie does a great job of capturing each sister's personality. It's set in modern times, our contemporary days. Meg, the oldest sister, is off at Harvard studying. Jo is wanting to be a writer. She drives a Jeep, which is no surprise for anyone. Amy is kind of like the party girl. She's like dyed hair and, painted fingernails and was out all night in the opening scene. And then there's Beth, who is the daughter who seemed to have no ambition, really, who played piano and was a good girl and, spoiler alert, ends up dying in Louisa May Alcott's original Little Women. So that Beth is Dead was kind of like a great title. Or Beth is Dead. Did I say Beth is dead or Beth was dead?
I think Beth is dead.
Okay.
Uh-oh, maybe something else happens in the book.
Oh my gosh.
We are reading ghost stories.
I know, right? Beth was dead and then she became a vampire.
Oh, Chris's real true wish for this novel.
Right? Oh my gosh. So anyway, Beth dies pretty early on. But the novel so far, each chapter is told from a different sister's perspective. And there's some flashback into the past. So the mom is a trauma nurse who is often working double shifts. So she's easy to kind of get around and lie to things. And then dad is a writer. He's published 10 novels to critical acclaim, but not popular acclaim. So he wanted to write something that would make money. And he writes a novel about his 4 daughters. Mm-hmm. And things get kind of wild. So I'm at the very beginning of learning about the wild part. It's a detective mystery story in part. It's a story of these sisters. I think that for people who don't know Little Women, I think it would still be a good mystery because, it's hard for me to separate out to try and pretend that I don't know these little women, right? Because they're so part of my brain. I think that it probably would be pretty easy for somebody to catch the personalities of the sisters and know who's who and what's what. So don't shy away from reading it if you're not a reader of Little Women. If you are a reader of Little Women, you're going to love it and you'll get more of the inside jokes between the sisters and whatnot. So more to come on this. Beth is Dead by Katie Barnett. Again, this comes out January 6, 2026. And I debated reading it or not, waiting until next year, because, next year's just 2 weeks away or so, but I just couldn't help myself.
I love it. I'm glad that you have little self-control around books just like me. Well, I'm also reading Good Things by Samin Nosrat. This is her follow-on cookbook to Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. The title comes from a line in a Raymond Carver short story published in 1983 called A Small Good Thing. And there's a line, eating is a small good thing in a time like this, in the short story. And that's where she got the idea for the title of the book. The thing that's really surprising about this cookbook is there's a lot of vulnerability in it, because people look at Samin Nosrat and said, oh my God, you had like one of the best-selling cookbooks of all time, of recent publishing. The book led you to have this 4-part Netflix series. She was just revered and everywhere, but she ended up going into a pretty deep depression after the success of all of that. And she talks about how she was very alone. She wasn't partnered. She was living a pretty isolated life. And then we went through the pandemic, and her father passed away, and her father was very difficult. So she really speaks to that in the writing of the book. And I appreciated that. And I thought, it's kind of a risk to talk about that. But the part of the reason she does is because what this book is about is her realizing that sharing food around the table became much more important to her than, like creating fancy recipes or taking deep dives necessarily into recipes. And she also kind of even had trouble with like recipes, like people following recipes, because part of what her other book was about was how to learn to cook more intuitively. So really interesting that she shared some of this process. And what happened during the pandemic is she became very close to some of her neighbors, and they started to have these Monday night dinners. And she thought the expectation was that she had to do all of this work and create fancy food, or even if not fancy food, but just be really involved in the cooking. And then there were a lot of little kids at these tables, and what they really wanted was for her to sit down and eat with them. So it really changed the way that she looked at sharing food around a table.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful cookbook. And one of the things I wanted to read is, I'm sorry, I can't remember if I actually read about this in the cookbook or I've been listening to every interview that she's participating in because I'm slightly obsessed with her. But she also talked about being impacted by the poet Joy Harjo's poem, Perhaps the World Ends Here. So I thought I would read it. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it, babies teethe at the corners, they scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it, we make women. At this table we gossip, recall enemies and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor falling down selves and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth on this table and have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. So lovely. Yeah. So Samin talks a lot about being around a kitchen table and cooking for people.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing the poem.
Yeah.
And talking about her story.
Yeah. Again, Good Things by Samin Nosrat. So Chris, what did you just read?
Well, I finished The Award by Matthew Pearl. Oh my gosh, what a great, fun read. This just came out December 2nd. Matthew Pearl is known as, he's written a lot of nonfiction of late, but he's known as a mystery writer. His first novel was The Dante Club, which is a great mystery. Really enjoyed that one. The Award is set in contemporary times, and it is about a young writer, David is his name, who is struggling. He and his girlfriend at the beginning are looking at apartments to live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is home of Harvard. So, you know, their rents are astronomical if you can actually find anything. They find this second floor apartment that is part of a house, and it's kind of a unique situation. The house is actually owned by a man, Silas Hale, and his wife. And then the second floor is also owned by another couple who are renting it out. So there was something with the deed of the house that separated in that way. The only access to the house, really, to the second floor, and I misspoke in the last episode, I think I said it was the third floor, it's actually the second floor, is this outside stairwell that's covered that somebody constructed to get up to the second floor, but it's really narrow. and hard to get up. And so David and his girlfriend are up there with the realtor looking at it. And she's like, oh, this is great. You know, it's astronomical rent, but she works. She has a full-time job. David doesn't, apparently. He's struggling to finish his first novel. They're talking about how would we even get furniture up here. He has all of these kind of criticisms going on in his head. And then he finds out Silas Hale lives downstairs, who is a famous writer. The man has won Pulitzer. He's won a Nobel. He is a huge to-do. And as soon as David hears that, he's like, we'll take it. Well, David makes more unfortunate decisions along the way. Hank Philippi Ryan recommended this book when Emily and I ran into her at the Harvard bookstore a couple weeks ago, and I'm so glad she did. And she had mentioned that it's really twisty and turning. She didn't see some things coming. Yeah, really. Now, Hank also just recently interviewed Matthew Pearl. He was on A Mighty Blaze, and I was able to attend the first part of that conversation. I had to take off for a meeting myself, but it is on YouTube, and we'll put a link in the show notes. I plan on going back and watching the rest of that conversation because it was so good. Hank's a great interviewer, and Matthew is a very wonderful speaker.
Yeah, Hank sits in front of, a wall of Emmys because she was an amazing journalist in her day.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And a fantastic mystery writer. So this story, some people are calling it a satire of the publishing industry. And Matthew Pearl in that interview with Hank was like, yeah, it wasn't really a satire in my mind. And he talks about how, in the old days, I say with quotation marks, when I was a bookseller, so we're talking, pre-pandemic, authors were often picked up at the airport and driven around by what were called author escorts. And as somebody who worked in bookstores for a long time, I knew some of them pretty well. And, you hear stories about authors and how authors behave when the public isn't looking. Matthew, when he was being driven around by author escorts, he's like, I'd get in the front seat, we'd chat, we'd talk about things, and he would hear stories about other authors. And so this character of his, Silas Hale, is a pompous ass. He is just a condescending asshole, really. I mean, horrific character. And he's the kind of person who says awful things to people. And Matthew Pearl says, talking with some of the author escorts that he knew, they would often tell the story about this one author in particular who would just get into the back seat and say, don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't speak to me unless I speak to you.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And he's not naming names. And so now I'm thinking like, oh, I should ask some of those author escorts that I knew. Like,
who is, maybe if you met Matthew Pearl, in the right circumstance, he would tell you, but probably not.
Probably not. And, you can kind of imagine a couple. I mean, he did say Umberto Eco was a pill when he met him, just really rude.
Yeah. I mean, I've also talked to authors who say they get, their job is to sit in a room and be really solitary, and they know they have to go out and be in public, but they have to take SSRIs to be on a stage, and they just get so nervous. And I mean, I'm thinking of one in particular that I was just in a room, like it wasn't even a stage, and her hands were shaking,
Well, I could see stage fright, but if you're just sitting at a table, you can't smile at somebody.
I know.
I don't know. Like you're also a human being.
Yeah.
That's
true. Yeah.
And as this book of Matthew Pearl's makes clear, there are a lot of stereotypes about writers and fame and what fame does to people.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that. And money.
Yeah, fame, what is that saying? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. So it's also a good portrait of living in Cambridge, probably, and being a creative type, because he's in coffee shops and he talks about like the writer's life and, picking different coffee shops for different days and knowing when to go and what tables you might have a shot at getting and things like that. It's a wild story, and one of the criticisms I have heard about it is that it relies on one person knowing something, and only that one person knowing something, and it might be a little unrealistic. And I kind of agree with that, but it didn't matter at all. Didn't matter at all. It's a really good story. Really good. I was laughing. I was getting angry at times. Perfect book. So I'll stop gushing now, but again, that's The Award by Matthew Pearl. if you want a really good mystery or look into the life of writers, totally recommend it.
Great. Well, because of reading Samin Nosrat's Good Things, I went out and got a copy of a Raymond Carver short story collection called Where I'm Calling From, New and Selected Stories, because I wanted to read the short story, A Small Good Thing. The epigraph in the book is, eating is a small good thing in a time like this, Raymond Carver. It opens with a woman going to a bakery to order a birthday cake for her son. And then the next scene is the young boy, her son, on his 8th birthday is walking to school and gets hit by a car, a hit and run. And he ends up in hospital because he has a fractured skull. So she never goes to the bakery to pick up the cake because she's by his bedside at the hospital. But the baker keeps calling the house. And he gets angrier and angrier. You know, I made this cake. I put Scotty's name on it. Come pick up the cake, you know. And then later in the story, and I don't want to completely spoil it, but in kind of a rage, the husband and the wife go to the baker to kind of tell him, like, stop harassing us about this cake. When he finds out why they didn't pick it up, he becomes very human and sits them down. He, like, clears off his, you can picture this table covered with, you know, ephemera on the table that he's trying to run this busy bakery, and sits them down and offers them a cup of coffee. And the baker says to them, you probably need to eat something, the baker said. I hope you'll eat some of my hot rolls. You have to eat and keep going. Eating is a small, good thing in a time like this. Oh, this short story was so beautifully written. And the other thing it paints in here is this notion, too, of, you know, this hardworking baker who kind of just is like, come pick up your cake. Like, I worked really hard to make this cake. It has your kid's name on it. Come pick it up. So I could see with the story that Samin is telling in her cookbook of, you know, how cooking evolved for her. You can see the hard work of this baker and how important it was for him in this scene to, you know, reach to his humanity and realize, like, it's not just about being in front of a hot oven 16 hours a day. These are people with human faces here to pick up this cake. Beautiful short story. I'm so grateful to Samin Nosrat for, you know, the epigraph and for making me find my way to it. Again, it's called A Small Good Thing. It was written in 1983, and the collection I found it in was Where I'm Calling From. It might be available online. I didn't look.
You know, I'm pretty sure the epigraph for Matthew Pearl's the award is Writers Are Dangerous People. I don't remember, and I read it as an ebook because I just wanted to start it right away when Hank recommended it.
That's great. And so true.
So true, right? Aren't we all?
Yes.
Potentially. So I read a wonderful book for young readers called Jurassic Girl, The Adventures of Mary Anning, Paleontologist and the First Female Fossil Hunter. This is by Michelle C. Hollow. It came out in 2024, and it's for kids ages 8 to 12 is what the publisher recommends. And it is about a 12-year-old girl who discovers, well, she's a fossil hunter on the beach with her dad. Her dad has taught her how to look for fossils and find them. This is in pre-20th century, 19th century that she's learning how to hunt fossils on the beach with her dad on the coast of England. And she finds a couple really special specimens. And this is at a time when people don't really know what dinosaurs were. They don't really understand that they were millions of years old. You know, this is really challenging a lot of the biblical understanding of the world being 2,000 years old or 6,000 years old. I don't remember what those arguments are. Those arguments don't make it into the book. But it's understood that this is a really new science that people are very excited about. And her dad discovers a really big fossil. Well, he doesn't know what it is, but it's up on the cliffs. And during these huge storms, you know, part of the cliffs fall and they reveal things. And he unfortunately dies trying to reach this. He's not sure what it is, but he knows it's a big fossil because of the coloration of the rock and everything. But the town gets together. Mary is a really good leader. Even, you know, she's 12. She has a ton of knowledge. She has a good mind on her shoulder, although she's a little impulsive sometimes, and her older brother is the voice of reason quite often. And so the older brother's boss, like the minister in town, there's another friend in town who's wealthy. They all get together and they build scaffolding so that she can access this huge dinosaur head and then eventually find the rest of the body. And it's about her knowledge and how, the organization in London that is run by wealthy white men are just in disbelief that some 12-year-old girl could have any knowledge about fossils and dinosaurs, or that she could be a really good drawer of what she is seeing because she makes drawings, and they're like, a 12-year-old girl couldn't have done that. So there's some of that tension, but again, this is for 8 to 12-year-olds, so it was very pleasant to read. It was just the perfect book for me at the right time because I wanted to read something about a woman or girls, but that wasn't about all of the awfulness of the world towards women and girls. This touched on it, but again, it wasn't the main focus. The main focus was Mary and her knowledge and her good attitude, and I enjoyed it so much. So highly recommend. I think it'd be a really nice holiday gift or a birthday gift for a young reader in your life, or for you, dear listener, if you were looking for a nice story that doesn't involve a lot of awfulness, but it doesn't deny that there's sexism and ageism in the world. Again, that's Jurassic Girl, The Adventures of Mary Anning, Paleontologist and the First Female Fossil Hunter by Michelle C. Hollow.
And I read The Last Witch by C.J. Cook, which is the direct opposite of what Chris is just talking about. It's filled with a lot of torture and awfulness towards women. It was a fantastic read, though, I have to say. And just to remind people, this is about a woman named Helena who is living her life and finds out that her dear friend and her 6-year-old daughter were burned at the stake by a man who was on basically an inquisition looking for women who were accused of being witches. And Helena, he comes to her town in Innsbruck, Austria, and she ends up, because she's outspoken, being imprisoned with a group of other women accused of being witches. And when I talked about this on the last episode, when I was still reading it, I said I hadn't read the author's note in the back. And when I finished, I did read the author's note, and boy, is it a banger. It really explains how C.J. Cook came to write this book, which is based on the true story of Helena Schreuben, accused of witchcraft in 1485 in Innsbruck, Austria. She stood up to the accuser, Heinrich Kramer, and he was so shocked by her behavior that he wrote a book called Malleus Maleficarum. I probably totally mispronounced that. One of the most important texts about witchcraft published in 1486. And that is part of what she writes about in the author's note. And I just thought I would read this part. It doesn't spoil anything, but it does help you understand why C.J. Cook was drawn to write about this man. And this is considered historical horror fiction. Is that the way? Or horror?
Historical horror, I think is good.
Historical horror. Deemed unethical and illegal by some theologians at the time, Malleus Maleficarum was nonetheless a bestseller throughout Europe. Women formed 80% of the approximately 100,000 people prosecuted on charges of witchcraft in Europe in the early modern period. Notably, Maleficarum is the feminine plural of the Latin word for witch. Maleficarum, being both masculine and neuter plural adjective form, refers to both male and female witches together. Kramer was intentional in his use of Maleficarum to mean that a witch is a female. Largely because of this book, witch remains a feminine term almost 600 years later. Of course, misogyny did not originate with Kramer, though his book and Inquisitions certainly helped to advance widespread hatred of women. Most striking is that almost 600 years after the book's publication, it sadly resonates with some current thinking. And I think that's part of why, of course, she was inspired to be writing about this now, because we're seeing a lot of backward sliding in, accusations towards women and treatment of women. It is hard to read some of the chapters that involved torture, but I do think that this is a really interesting historical perspective on witchcraft and particularly from looking at it in Europe in 1485 in Innsbruck, Austria. Again, it's called The Last Witch by C.J. Cook.
All right, now we're going to go for a nice stroll through the streets of London with Virginia Woolf. I read her essay, Street Hauntings, A London Adventure. And this essay came to my attention. This summer, I took an essay writing class through Grub Street Writers. And so I was looking at a lot of different essays. And this is one that caught my attention, especially the hauntings part of it, because I thought, okay, goes with our ghost theme. I printed a copy, stuck it in a folder. I'm so glad that I went through that folder this week and pulled this out and read it. The first sentence, gold. No one, perhaps, has ever felt passionately towards a lead pencil. That's the first sentence. So this essay is all about Wolf wanting to go out on a walk and needing to have a purpose. And she decides she needs to go get a pencil. And here she is on this ramble going through London. And, you know, she's known for stream of consciousness writing. And so you see her, you're walking with her as she's seeing different things and experiencing different things. And it's just a beautiful essay. I know when I finished it, I was, you know, my comment was like amazing imagery. And the things that she sees are really unique and different. You know, she had an eye for noticing things. And there's a quote from this essay that I've seen before on various like bookmarks and whatnot. And it is, secondhand books are wild books, homeless books. They have come together in vast flocks of variegated feather and have a charm which the domesticated volumes of the library lack. And I was like, oh, that's where that quote's from. And she goes on just wonderful humanity. She had so much deep humanity and I think love and caring towards other people in a way that was not sentimental or what is another word? You know, it wasn't like soft and squishy, you know. At one point she says, you know, talking about all these people that she has seen and situations she's witnessed. She says, into each of these lives, one could penetrate a little way, far enough to give oneself the illusion that one is not tethered to a single mind, but can put on briefly for a few minutes the bodies and minds of others. It's just a wonderful essay about walking through the streets of London to get this pencil. And, you know, even at one point saying, one always must do something or other. It is not allowed one simply to enjoy oneself. You know, that she can't just go for a walk. Right. She has to have an intention in mind, you know. I
was wondering if is she giving herself purpose because she feels like she needs to be writing? Or is that not part of it? You know how like writers always feel like they have to be produced, not always, but a lot of them feel like, you know, I have to sit down and write every day.
Yeah, she doesn't really go into that. I mean, after that sentence that I just read, she says, was it not for this reason that some time ago we fabricated the excuse and invented the necessity of buying something? But what was it? Ah, we remember. It was a pencil. Let us go then and buy this pencil. Yeah, I mean, it could have been, maybe. But, you know, she was sitting there and she wanted to go out on a walk and a ramble. And the street hauntings is in part reflecting on herself from a year ago when she stood on a bridge over the Thames, feeling differently than she was then. You know, so there's that self-haunting aspect. And then what you see and the people you witness, and then that they come back with you and they're in your mind. But she doesn't really talk about it as being like an escape from writing. It's more of like what the walk does for her, because at the very end, the first sentence of the last paragraph, that is true. To escape is the greatest of pleasures. Street haunting in winter, the greatest of adventures. So, and I want to read the whole thing, but I won't. I think people should just find this.
Yes, we will put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I found it online, and I get along better with Virginia Woolf's nonfiction than I do her fiction. But I thought maybe I should just try reading her fiction as nonfiction.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I get a little apprehensive about like, this is a great novel, you know?
Yeah.
Which, come on, it's just a novel.
Right.
written by somebody who had an amazing mind, for
Right.
sure. I mean, Virginia Woolf, my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was Street Hauntings, a London adventure, an essay that felt like a novel in its depth.
That's great. And we will put a link to it in the show notes, as we do everything. But I mean, we'll put it so that you can get the free version online.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we read together A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And we read a narration, an audiobook that was recommended by our dear sound engineer, Pat Keogh.
Yes, he recommended one by Ralph Cosham.
And this is a novella published in 1843. It's told in 5 staves, what Dickens called staves, which essentially are chapters. And I agreed with Pat that the narration was fantastic. We had our first big snowstorm here in Connecticut, and I needed to drive about an hour in it. And I started listening to this, and it was like the perfect thing to be listening to on my snowy drive.
Yeah, it was a great narration. I mean, this is a story that I'm so familiar with. You know, I've read it, I've seen adaptations of it, and it's never ending. Like, there's another one coming out, another adaptation coming out by somebody really famous. I think Johnny Depp
stars
is,
in it.
Yeah, so like there's another one coming.
Yeah,
you know,
in
like
26.
Yeah, and it's just because it's such an iconic story, but like it always catches me off guard. I think I do get so sucked into it, and especially with this narration, the performance was so good because it really brought the humanity to life. The humor, his timing, the grumpiness of Scrooge just was perfect. But you know, I'm weeping at the end. I'm like, damn it. I didn't expect that to happen, you know?
Well, and the writing, I mean, the words are so good. Like, I wrote down a couple of things. I wrote down, I mean, we should say for people who maybe don't know, it's about Ebenezer Scrooge, who's visited by his dead business partner, Jacob Marley. And one of the lines I loved, which was towards the beginning, was, Marley's ghost is described as looking like a bad lobster in a hot cellar. Like, that is such a great line. Yes. I was walking and I actually stopped to write it down in notes. And then when he meets Marley as a ghost, Marley says, I wear the chains I forged in life.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, Dickens, he is still read for a reason.
Yeah.
And so his dead partner comes to tell him he's going to be visited by spirits, and he's visited by the spirit of the past, present, and future.
And he doesn't even call it future, he calls it yet to come. For some reason, I really dug that. And Scrooge he's a miser, you know, like there's a scene where he's eating gruel, and he just, I wrote great writing, ! And the narration is so good.
Yeah.
And it is, you know, about someone looking at past experiences, present and future, and what does that mean for how you're choosing to live your life today? Right.
Yeah. I mean, the bah humbug thing is total Scrooge, right? I mean, he's so wealthy and he lives in squalor, basically, and is just such a miser and mean-spirited man.
Yeah. Angry. Yeah. And then one other thing that surprised me was Tiny Tim, who's very famous for saying,
"A Merry Christmas to us all. God bless us, everyone."
Yeah. He's just a happy boy who's doesn't have the best fate.
Well, we don't know what happens to him. We get a glimpse of what could happen to him, you know? And at the end, he's very much alive. He does have some type of physical challenge. He uses a crutch. He's not in the best health.
Right.
But, I mean, does he die at the end?
I thought he did die.
I don't remember that. I don't think he does.
All right.
Like, I mean, I don't think we know that he dies in the future. Like at the end of the story, he's alive. But we don't know what happens after the story, I don't think, because when this is spoilery, but sorry, folks, you know, at one point in what Scrooge sees what is yet to come, Tiny Tim is dead in that scenario.
Right.
So one hopes that when Scrooge turns the corner and starts actually paying people and not letting people he knows live in squalor,
there is hope.
There's maybe hope.
That his family could have different outcomes.
Yeah.
True.
And he could see what he can do. I mean, you know, you get the backstory of Scrooge and what an awful childhood he had.
Which is very much mirrors Charles Dickens and some of the struggles he had in his life. So I got it really, of course, had me go down and visiting Charles Dickens' life and some of his hardships as well. And I think that's part of what he's sharing in this story.
Yeah. And that's not to say Charles Dickens ended up a nice man, but
true that. Well, sometimes we write what we, not how we live.
Right. I mean, monsters and all that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But no, this was a fantastic narration. Thank you again, Pat, for recommending it. I downloaded it from Hoopla.
Me too.
And listened to it initially in the car, and then when I was doing dishes. And then I actually just sat on the couch with my dog and listened, which is not something I do with audiobooks usually, but I was just enjoying it so much.
Yeah, I actually listened to it twice because
Oh,
it's
wow.
only 2.5 hours. It also reminded me about how we're kind of kicking off this book to film adaptation. As Chris said, there's a lot of adaptations of A Christmas Carol with, always more coming out. And I realized that I did watch Spirited, starring Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. I think that was out in 24, which is another adaptation of A Christmas Carol that I enjoyed. It's a musical. It's funny. And if anyone's looking for something, have you watched some adaptations?
Yes, I've seen a lot of them. I mean, from the old black and whites to the Muppet version, which I plan on rewatching the Muppet version. And Laura said she's willing to watch it with me again. We love the Muppets. And I know I've seen it. It was known as being the only, or maybe the first Muppet movie where a human being was the main character.
Jason Segel. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm planning on watching that adaptation.
Oh, I bet I could get the Gentleman Caller game to do that. Maybe we'll do that over the Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who doesn't
That's a
love
great
the Muppets,
idea.
right?
And reminder that A Christmas Carol is also on our Ghost Story bingo card.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I got a bingo.
Yippee!
Because of this. Where is it? I'm looking at my Ghost Stories bingo card right now. Oh no, I didn't get one because of that. It was actually Virginia Woolf's Street Hauntings that I put down for we have LGBTQIA author. I put that one there,
Nice.
Virginia Woolf. So she gave me a bingo.
Right on. Yeah, so friendly reminder that the bingo card deadline is December 31st. Just take a picture of your bingo card and email it to us at bookcougars@gmail.com. We're starting to get some. It's fun to see your bingos. And when you send it in, you'll be automatically entered to win a bookshop.org gift card.
Good luck, everyone. So I did read one more, and that was Sapphira and the Slave Girl by Willa Cather. This is her last published novel and the last one that Colleen's group read and discussed. We had a fantastic discussion. I love rereading Cather novels, and this is one that I haven't read a ton. We read it with Jenny from Reading Envy. I don't remember where we discussed what, but we discussed this novel and then also Gone with the Wind with Jenny. We read those two together. Gone with the Wind came out first. They have a similar theme in some ways, but the conversation was really interesting, and some of the other literary novels that were brought up in relation to Sapphira that could be good companion reads were Kindred by Octavia Butler, and then also Beloved by Toni Morrison. That got us talking too about Toni Morrison had a collection of essays on whiteness in American literature, and I know this book is discussed in there. But we also talked about the disability representation. Sapphira, if you might remember, Emily is in a modified wheelchair because of her condition, and then also the issue of slavery and also inherited wealth, which is not something I don't know that we talked about when we had the conversation with Jenny, but just kind of deconstructing that whole myth of the self-made person. So really great conversation. I'm so glad that Colleen did this and included other readers in it. It's always interesting to talk about either a brand new book or one that you've read before with different people, because you get so many different things out of it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, and I should say, so Allison, who is in this group with Colleen, is going to be doing an Octavia Butler reading year where they're going to be reading one novel of hers each month and discussing it. And they're starting with the new biography of Octavia Butler that's out and very popular, and that I started reading and kind of stalled on, but need to get back to. So if anybody's interested in that, you can reach out to me or Colleen on Instagram if you're connected with her, and get connected with Allison in that way. I'm resisting joining that. I'm just...
Look, she's like pushing her sleeves up and getting itchy.
I am getting sweaty just talking about it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm trying not to take on too much next year, but I might just maybe dip in on a conversation here and there, because she has definitely written some of my favorite novels. So Biblio adventures.
Whew, I've had quite a few. What should I start with? I'll start with the fact that I watched, or dare I say binged, season 5 of Slow Horses, based on the novel London Rolls by Mick Herron. Oh, that series is so good. I think I've given up on the idea of reading any of the novels. You know, the first season was based on Slow Horses, which I own a copy of. I have heard that the audiobook is really good, so maybe I would try it, but I don't know. I'm so deep in at this point. And this pits protagonist Jackson Lamb, head of Slough House, against First Desk MI5 Cloud Whelan. And in this one, there's a terrorist plot targeting London. It's really good. It's very action-packed this season. And there is a new show out called Down Cemetery Road, based on Mick Herron's debut novel of the same name, and it stars Emma Thompson. And there's a first season of that out now, and I've thought about, maybe I could read that one and start it. Who knows? We'll see what happens with that. What about you?
Well, I had a wonderful time watching that conversation with Hank, Philippi Ryan, and Matthew Pearl, A Mighty Blaze. We've talked about A Mighty Blaze in the past. You can find them on Facebook and YouTube. They do great interviews and have different series. Like Hank does the mystery writers. They do, debuts and a lot of other ones. So that was really good. And then the only other thing I did was I had coffee with a friend at the Book Trader bookstore and cafe in New Haven, and had a nice browse of the books after that, after coffee or tea, actually. And then on the walk back to the parking garage, I stopped in at Atticus and had another really nice browse and purchased a couple holiday gifts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those are two great bookstores really close to each other. It's so fun. And Book Trader has used books.
They have such a good selection, really curated well.
The only thing that frustrates me about that store is, I think it's the memoir section. There are so many tables in the cafe right in front of it that are usually filled with students. This is right near Yale's campus, that you can't really browse them without feeling like you're breathing down someone's neck. So I usually skip that section, which is one of my favorites to browse in a bookstore. Yeah. That's my only frustration about that store, but it's a great store.
You'll have to go one day, like before they open, be standing outside.
Right. And stand and, so no one can sit at that table.
Right.
Well, I had a couple more. Well, I had many more, actually. I also watched Come See Me in the Good Light, which is a documentary about Colorado's poet laureate, Andrea Gibson. Andrea is a revered spoken word poet. They have 7 books. Andrea also sadly passed away from ovarian cancer. And the documentary follows the last year in their life. Really beautifully done. I highly recommend it. Wonderful documentary. I think it was on Apple TV. And then the other thing I did was a huge week in New York City with my son, Jacob. He came to town to do some business. We got to stay at Aunt Ellen's place. Thank you so much, Aunt Ellen. And I was tromping around the city with Jacob and my nephew, Zach, who are both young people. So occasionally it was hard for me to keep up. But we did have some fun Biblio adventures in the midst. One was we stopped at the Brooklyn Public Library main branch. This is near Prospect Park. I think we've walked near it before, but never went in together. A couple years ago, there was a great exhibit with Jay-Z, featuring Jay-Z, and they had literally wrapped the outside of the building in his song lyrics. I never got to go see the exhibit, unfortunately. It is a beautiful building. They have a really cool vinyl lending collection. And I also introduced both Jacob and Zach to the idea that if you're ever looking for a bathroom, public libraries are the greatest spot to go. So we all availed of ourselves of that while we were there. We also stopped at Cafe Con Libros in Crown Heights, which is a Black feminist bookstore. 90% of the books written are by, for, and about women and girls, with particular attention to the immigrant experience.
Oh, I'm so glad you got to go there.
Oh, so cool. And they have it's tiny, but they did have like a little machine where they could make you a coffee or a tea. And it had just started a cold rain, so I got a lovely cup of tea and had a great conversation with the bookseller. And Jacob and I both purchased board books. He for his son, Bo, and me for my granddaughter, Nina. So that was a great stop. And then we also just happened upon Bibliothèque New York City, which I have read about. It's a bookstore, cafe, and bar in Soho with new and vintage books. Some of the vintage books were very valuable and behind glass. It was an interesting vibe. There is a bar and then a lot of like comfy couch type of a situation with tables. It was packed. And we were there probably at noon on a Tuesday, I think. Yeah, amazing. And they also have a rule, no laptops after 5.
Good for them.
Yeah. So cool. And I think they had a movie night. We were trying to figure out, where they might have a screen that would come down. And Zach suggested maybe they project it on the wall or something. Cool vibe. Very different. If you find yourself in Soho, you might check that out. So it was a great week. It was filled with all sorts of different things, and it was really fun to get some Biblio adventures mixed in there.
Very cool. We also heard from Rebecca, our newest Patreon member. She sent us an email, and she says, "Thank you for being my book-loving companions. I'm a longtime listener who enjoys hearing about your reading lives. Your Biblio adventures are a special treat and have inspired me as I make plans and travel. In fact, based on this inspiration, my mom and I went on an extra special Biblio adventure to England, planned almost exclusively around literary sites in London, Bath, and Oxford. Here's to more happy reading in 2026.
Oh, Rebecca, thank you so much for that email. Total green-eyed envy. What great places to go visit, and to do it with your mom. What an added bonus.
So fun.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We love hearing about your Biblio adventures. Send them our way. We can live vicariously through you.
Absolutely. Any upcoming jaunts on your calendar?
The only thing I have is something I talked about last episode. I did buy myself a virtual pass to Aspen Winter Words, and the first one in the series is January 28th with Susan Orlean talking about her memoir Joyride, which has a great cover, and that's from 6 to 7 Mountain Time. So I bought myself a virtual pass for this. And the others, I think there are 2 more, and they're both in February. How about you?
Well, I signed up. Biographers International has an annual event called Biography Lab, and I've attended the last 2 years, I think it is, that I've done this. Really fascinating. It's a day-long Zoom conference. They have a keynote speaker and then 2 sessions, 2 panels, talking about different aspects of biography, and then like a meet and greet at the end for people who want to hang out and socialize. It's January 24th. Registration just opened the last day or so I registered for it. The keynote speaker this year is David Denby. He's a staff writer for The New Yorker. His recent book is a group biography called Eminent Jews, Bernstein, Brooks, Frieden, and Mailer. This just came out in 2025 from Henry Holt and Company. If you go to their website, we'll put a link in the show notes. You can see the other biographers that will be there speaking. I think it's $60 if you're not a member of Bio, and that also gets you a complimentary year membership of Bio. And I highly recommend them if you're a reader of biographies, of nonfiction, if you're an aspiring writer of nonfiction and biography. It's a wonderful organization. They also have an annual in-person conference that I think is in May this year in New York City.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
How about upcoming reads?
Well, upcoming reads, I have a reread coming up, actually 29 rereads. if this reading plan actually happens, I am going to be rereading Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell. This is going to be a buddy read with our mystery man, John Valeri. When John and I met early on, one of the ways we bonded was talking about Patricia Cornwell's Kay Scarpetta series. We're both longtime readers of this series. And over the years, John and I have both talked about rereading the series just because we really love so many of the early novels. But you forget, like, which one is what. So we're doing it. We're going to be getting together once a month to talk about a Patricia Cornwell novel. Added bonus for me is that Patricia Cornwell is also a really good cook. She has a couple Italian cookbooks out. John's a really good cook, and he's going to be cooking something from Cornwell's cookbooks. So I not only get to have a conversation with a great reader, I get to eat his delicious food.
Such a good idea. I love it.
Postmortem, it came out in 1990. It is one of the novels. I mean, her whole series really helped kick off the whole CSI craze. She was one of the first novelists to really show how CSI techniques work, using forensic evidence and looking at blood splatters to try and recreate crime scenes and things like that. So I am really kind of excited about this, and I hope we follow through on it. John and I don't have the best track record when it comes to buddy reads, but I think we're going to follow through.
Maybe adding the food component will make it, where you just can't not do it.
I know, if nothing else, we can sit there and eat the food and hold the book.
Exactly.
And be like, isn't that a great cover? No, I think we're going to do it. And
I believe in you.
Patricia Cornwell, I think it's coming out this spring. She has a memoir coming out. So, yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I too have a reread.
Wow.
Who is this person sitting across from you? In honor of our 2026 read-along theme, which if you haven't listened to the last episode, we will tell you now is that we are going to be focused on books that have film or television adaptations. And in the spirit of that, I thought my crossover book for 2025 to 2026. And if people are like, what the heck is a crossover book? Chris and I talk about how we really think long and hard about what the book is we want to be reading on the last day, crossing over to the first day of the new year. I have decided that it's going to be Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman.
Wow.
I am a huge Alice Hoffman fan. I don't know when I read this book. It came out a long time ago, 1995.
Wow.
So I'm going to be reading Practical Magic and watching the film. There is a new Practical Magic movie in the works, so it seems appropriate to watch the original. New meaning like a continuation, not like a remake of the original. So that's one of my upcoming reads.
That's so cool.
I have a public service announcement though, because I also downloaded the audiobook, and the original audiobook came out in 1995, and it is narrated by Cherry Jones, and it's an abridged version.
Get out. Wow.
They used to do that back in the day, remember? Because I started listening, I'm like, 3 hours? That seems weird. So I went, and sure enough, there's a 2012 version narrated by Christina Moore that's over 9 hours. So be careful if you go get the audiobook.
That is a great public service announcement, and so fascinating. Like the history of audiobooks is really fascinating. I hope somebody out there is writing a history of it right now, researching that, because there were so many misunderstandings about audiobooks early on, about what consumers wanted, how they wanted it, what would they listen to, what would they pay. I mean, audiobooks were hugely expensive.
Yes.
So the abridged, had something to do with the finances. Also, what they thought people would want to listen to. Like, I was at the Stony Creek Library the other day. It's one of our local libraries here. And they had a huge bin full of audiobooks they were giving away for free. And all I could think was like, that is like thousands of dollars right there. And $1990 anyway,
Yeah. Well, and also, like, whose job was it to decide what they would cut out of the story? Did they go back to the authors and say, hey, give us the Reader's Digest version? I mean, somebody decided what part of the story to tell, right?
Wow, what a job. Can you imagine? I'm the abridger of literature for... Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be really hard. I mean, with classics, I always wonder about that because, back when I was younger, that was a thing with classics, is always trying to find the one that's not abridged.
Right.
Because you'd want the full story. But again, I think people made assumptions that kids wouldn't want to read the whole book.
Right.
Which is wrong.
Yeah. And this one, they look exactly the same. Wow. And I was wondering, like, why are there two? I thought it was just an error, and I got them from Hoopla. They look exactly the same. But one is 3.5 hours and one is 9.5 hours. So be on the lookout for that.
Wow. Very good to know. Thank you. Well, my crossover book is going to be A Backward Glance by Edith Wharton. And this is her autobiography. I'm looking forward to diving into this.
Wonderful.
Because I remember when we were at Edith Wharton's The Mount, we kind of talked about this with two of the staff members there. And one of them said that she thought Edith was a little hard on her mom.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, I also have a lovely book stack, thanks to Putnam, starting with The Kamigawa Food Detectives, which is the first book in the Kamigawa Food Detective series. The second book is The Restaurant of Lost Recipes, and the third is Menu of Happiness. I loved the first one, The Kamigawa Food Detectives, and when we had our Patreon reading salon last month, which had a focus on books with a theme of food, one of our listeners, I think it was Julie, let me know that there's more in the series, which I had just not seen come across our email or anything. So thank you so much. And I reached out to the publisher. They sent us the whole series. They're so beautiful. This is a great cozy series from a Japanese author translated by Jessie Kirkwood. And I think I'm just going to take them home and dig into all of them over the holiday week.
Lovely.
So reminder, everybody, that we do query you for your top 10 reads of the year. Our first episode of 2026 will be with Russell from Ink and Paper Blog, where we share with you our top 10 reads of the year. This is an annual tradition, but we are going to open up the Google sheet that we created for you to share with us your top 10 reads on December 31st. The link for that will be in the December newsletter.
So if you're not a newsletter subscriber, now is a great time to become one. It's super easy to subscribe. Just go to our website and you'll see a subscribe button or, subscribe. Click on that, enter your email. We only send one email a month. If you get tired of that, it's super easy to unsubscribe. We use MailChimp, so there's no hassle.
And we can't wait to hear what your top 10 reads are of the year. I know for me, it's going to be really hard this year.
I know, really tough. And it doesn't have to be a book published in 2025. Reminder about that. It could be a book from any time period. It's just one that you read within the calendar year of 2025. And one more thing about the newsletter, a small enticement, is that every 10th episode, we do a giveaway for newsletter subscribers.
Oh my goodness. That means today is a 10th episode.
Oh, 250.
Yeah.
It is. Look at that. Wow.
Well, we haven't chosen the giveaway book, but we will.
We will. And some lucky newsletter subscriber will get that. And this episode publishes on December 30th. The newsletter goes out the 31st. So we will choose the winner on what? Say January 6th?
Sure.
Okay.
That sounds great.
So you have until January 5th then to become a newsletter subscriber.
Yes. And until then, we wish you lots of
happy reading. Thanks for listening to The Book Cougars with Chris Wallach and Emily Fine. We'll be back again with another episode in 2 weeks. Until then, come chat with us on social media, Goodreads, or email us at bookcougars@gmail.com. If you'd like to help support our podcast, please tell others about us, leave a review wherever you listen, and consider becoming a patron. Even $1 a month is a big help. Learn more about that on our website, bookcougars.com, where you'll find the show notes for this and all of our past episodes.
Thanks, everybody.
This episode was edited by Pat Keogh Sound Design.